different ways in which humans pollute our water here on Earth. One of these ways is through non-point source pollutions. Non-point source pollutions are pollution that comes from runoff that doesn't have a distinct path. So it doesn't follow the same course every time to its water source. And this can be created through suburban development, city streets, rural homes, cropland, agriculture, any of these that where rainfall happens and it picks up toxins, and through runoff it transports it to water sources. And this pollution is uncontrolled, and it's dangerous in the sense that we don't know how much pollution, how many toxins it's actually picking up on the way, and we don't know how large amount of water is being rainfall. We don't know the exact numbers, and that's what makes it so dangerous, is because we don't know anything about it. So one of these examples of non-point source pollutions is agriculture, which actually happens to be the largest producer of non-point source pollutions. And this happens through farmers spraying their plants or their animal food with pesticides or fertilizers or something to enhance its growth, and these carry toxins. And when rainfall happens, it picks up these toxins off these plants and transports it through runoff. And even though there may not be a water source nearby, the water from runoff can still pick that toxins up and transport it to a water source, which evidently pollutes that water source that could be miles and miles and miles away. Another large producer of water pollution is the burning of fossil fuels. And this one is different because it actually doesn't happen on land or to water. It happens in the air. So you might think it does not have a direct correlation to water pollution. But eventually all of this pollution falls onto the ground, and in the same way that agriculture happens, the runoff picks up these toxins off the ground and transports them to water sources, which eventually again pollutes our water sources. Land development is very similar to agriculture in the sense that pollution is left on the ground through the trucks, through the digging, and all litter could be left over after workers are working on a site. And it also changes the path, changes the landscape, which can result in picking up more pollutants that have never been picked up. And this acts in a very similar way as agricultural non-point source pollution does. Now, along with agricultural, they have these things called lagoons, which can either be a large pit in the ground that is almost like a pond and they fill up with animal waste, or they can be large cylinder containers, like in this diagram. And these cylinders, all added up on a farm, can be over millions of gallons of animal waste. And when these lagoons leak, they produce a tremendous amount of water pollution, as there's millions of gallons of animal waste, and that will all end up in a water source, which is terrible for the environment. Point source pollutions. This is the opposite of non-point source pollution in the sense that we know exactly where the pollution is coming from, the amount of pollution, we can control it. So here, like sewage, we know exactly where sewers run. We know the pipes, we know the paths that the water takes to get to a water source. And we can control how much water is being put into the ocean or into the water source from these sewers, which gives us more control over the situation, and we can regulate it. And this results from it not being as dangerous as non-point source pollution. However, it is still water pollution, so it still is very bad for the environment. Another form of point source pollution is through vessels. And these vessels, we can control the amount of pollution that is placed, and we know the amount of pollution that is placed in the water through the amount of gas that is burned. You can tell by the amount of gas that is burned by how much pollution that vessel is putting into the water. And this gives you control over the situation in the same sense, and it makes it less dangerous. All of these pollutions result in one thing, and that is us losing our polar ice caps, which is the most valuable freshwater resource on the planet to us humans, as we can drink fresh water and it's usable by us. And as these melt, the water gets melted into the ocean water, which makes it unusable. So as soon as the polar ice caps melt, they're gone. That large amount of fresh water is gone. As you can see, only 1% of Earth on this planet is usable by humans. And of that 1%, less than 1% is in liquid form that is accessible right now. This is a major problem in society, if not the largest problem in natural resources, and it is a growing problem.